Cool. Hi, my name is Max Rofagha. I'm the founder of Finimize, and this is my first Hacks and Hackers. I was brought here by Andrew, who's on our team, and apparently we've actually had a few people from Hacks and Hackers join our team, I found out. As we walked in, he told me. So there's a long-standing relation between Finimize and Hacks and Hackers. So today I want to talk about the importance of product experimentation and also, probably more importantly, the benefits of achieving scale before building your product. And I guess I want this to be very interactive. So I'm going to go fairly high level through anything on the slides, but I'm super happy to jump in to like the proper nitty-gritty and details whenever. So just raise your hand and stop me, and then we can jump in. So I guess the first question is, what is Finimize? So in a nutshell, we are a fintech based here in London for young professionals who've built up some savings and don't know where to invest them. And we try to give them or support them really with their financial goals through giving them access to independent, snackable content paired with access to a community of like-minded individuals. And we're unlike existing investing or personal finance sites out there because the content that we produce is all in-house and independent, and like I said, you get access to this community, which I'll delve into in a second. The reason why I started Finimize was sort of a kind of a personal experience, and I'll just quickly jump into it to give a bit of context around what we're doing. So essentially, I was here on a mountain in the middle of Switzerland where I was living, and I was in my mid to late 20s, and everybody around me, whether it was my parents or sort of the media, were telling me, hey, you need to start saving up some money as you approach 30. And I took that to heart, and every month just took money from my salary and put it onto a savings account. And one day I woke up and realized, fantastic, I've built up some savings. And the next immediate follow-up question was, what do I do with these savings? And I wasn't a total layman. I'd heard of all the different things that I could be doing. And yet when push came to shove, I didn't really know what I should be doing. And so I started asking friends of mine. And a lot of them were here working in banks. And I pretty quickly basically discovered that when it came to their own finances, they were equally as clueless as I was. And so when I wanted to go see a professional advisor, I sat down with a lovely lady who asked me a bunch of very generic questions and then laid out brochures onto the table. And then I noticed, as I looked at them, that they all had their logo on it. And at that point, I realized, okay, so there's actually a sales pitch for the products that you're trying to sell me. And I was kind of annoyed and frustrated by that, and went back home and was looking for a solution that could give me independent and holistic financial advice, and I just couldn't find anything. And that was the genesis moment for Finimize. And I started digging a bit deeper and basically realized that I wasn't the only one with the problem. 86% of people in this millennial demographic, like myself, save each month, but they keep more than half of their savings in cash simply because we don't have access to suitable advice. So that was kind of setting the scene, how the whole problem started, what the whole genesis moment was. And then I guess the question is, how do we tackle that? And for us, the first step has been to, which is a bit, I guess, unusual, I guess, is we started building a community. And we started building this community through a very simple product, which was a daily financial newsletter. And in essence, what we were trying to do is we thought, hey, if we can get people to start thinking about finance just every day, 3 minutes, that's part of our USP, it's never more than 3 minutes reading time, then the whole world of finance will become a lot less daunting, a lot less intimidating, and things like interest rates and earnings and all that stuff will become a lot less scary. And we just kind of one day put it onto a WordPress site. Nobody looked at the WordPress site, so I started emailing everybody that I know, hey, check out my website. And then people started reading the email, but actually nobody went to the website. And then I just put all the content from the website into the email, and that's what started the newsletter. And we have been doing this now since sometime in 2016. We've grown it to more than 350,000 people without any marketing spend. And for us, from day one, community has been a very important part. And so here you can kind of see the evolution of a community. And it really, sort of like the newsletter, it was never the design to start a community. It kind of just happened. It was also, not, like I said, never the idea to start a newsletter. But basically, people started writing us in the beginning, like, hey, like I like what you guys are doing. Would be cool to meet you. And so one day we kind of just said, this was in East London in a pub, kind of similar to the way this started. We just said, hey, why don't we just meet people? And actually, like a decent amount of people showed up. And so we thought, cool, this is pretty cool. Like we can probably do this more often. Then we started hosting events. We're actually hosting one tonight at a different venue. And these things started to grow quite a lot. So I think tonight there's 300 people showing up to this Finimize event hosted by us. And then we started having people all over the world who would be like, hey, can you guys do a Finimize event in, we had Nigeria, in New York, like all over the world. People were like, yeah, come here and do the event. And we basically were like, okay, obviously we can't fly all over the world now, even though that would be nice, and host events. And so that's then when we started developing these user-hosted events. And so now we've literally had user-hosted events all over the world, from LA to Chicago, New York, Boston. We're having our first one in Argentina soon. We've had, I think, 2 or 3 in Nigeria. We're having tomorrow the first one in Ghana, all over Europe. And it's all just because of this newsletter. And people started to really identify with this newsletter. And like, we even have a book club. And I think the reason why that was is because we had some very strict sort of editorial guidelines, if you will. We always said there cannot ever be any jargon in what we're writing. It can never be longer than 3 minutes. And it always has to explain the top 2 news stories of the day. And that's it. And these rules that we set ourselves, I think, then really resonated with the audience, and that's, I think, what created this strong sort of brand engagement, because it made people feel smarter about themselves, and it also made people feel smarter in sort of dinner conversations. I think those were 2 important points. And so now we've grown this, and like I think the people who refer us, 80% use the word love when they talk about it. So it's kind of crazy the engagement that you see for a financial newsletter. And then we kind of have been working on this product the entire time, or we've been developing like prototypes on the side, because like I said, the overall problem was we wanted to help people solve this problem of I have savings, I don't know where to invest them. And obviously covering the news is just a tiny piece of that. And so we started building these prototypes and basically spent quite a lot of time on one prototype, which essentially gave people a financial plan, which I won't delve into too much right now, and ended up completely throwing it into the trash can. And the main takeaway for us then was actually that obviously knowledge is power, but in a more direct way for us, people weren't actually missing some slick new app. And you nowadays hear a lot about AI helping you solve your financial worries, etc. But actually what we found was that the majority of our community, when we asked them, what is the missing puzzle piece for you, told us that it is the lack of know-how. And that, I think, makes sense. If you start to think about it, the finance industry is clinging to this know-how, adding complexity where they can, adding opacity where they can. And I think now it's our job to really boil it down to the essentials and help people make sense of what's going on. So that was the first piece. And I think then we kind of established some scale for us, obviously not massive, but like some scale for us to start running some experiments. How can we help people with the know-how? And so that brings me to the experimentation side. So we use this framework where we basically try to run an experiment, or actually we try to run multiple experiments in the product every week. Every Friday we sit down with our content, product and engineering team, and we all sort of look at the funnel in the app, and we decide, okay, this is the area where we want to really focus on. And we asked our user base, and we do a bunch of research into, how can we improve this funnel step, and then we define problem hypotheses, and we basically sort of define them based on the insights that we've gotten from our user base, and then we define solution hypotheses, and then we define, okay, so if this is something that we want to test, what would be an experiment? It can be something very basic, like sending out an email, or it can be something quite complicated, like, I don't know, building something techie into the app. And then we basically test it. And actually, the really important point is, before we test it, everybody we write down everybody has to predict the result of this test. Because what we found there was that you tend to be super excited and overly optimistic when you have a new idea and you put it into action, and then in most of the cases, it actually doesn't move the needle. I think from Duolingo they run a similar framework, and I think they said something like 70 to 80% of the time the tests are basically false, and so there's no results. And so you just have to like really keep running a lot of tests. And then, you know, if a test comes or if an experiment comes out positive, then we might take it to the next stage. We might take the mock-up and really build it out, or, you know, take the built-out version and roll it out to everybody, etc. And so we found that puts us into a really nice rhythm, into a weekly rhythm of running experiments and constantly sort of optimizing what we're doing with the product, and thereby allows us to be much more agile when it comes to speaking with our user base. How much time do I have? 5 minutes. So this is then how the product looks today. We really try to look at the overall journey that a user undergoes. Again, something we learned from just relentless sort of engagement with and interactions with our users. So we kind of break it down to 3 pieces. The first phase is raising financial awareness. So that's when you kind of have that moment like I had where you start to say, hey, I have some money on the side. What should I be doing with it? The second phase is financial understanding, which is when you start to evaluate what are the different investing options even available to me. And then the third phase is for taking financial action, which is when you decide how much money you want to be putting into which financial products. And so for us, the first step is financial awareness, and that's where we use the daily news that I just described. We also have them in the app. The second phase is financial understanding, and so there we launched a subscription product called Finimize Packs, and a pack is essentially a guide on any type of financial topic that you might be interested in. Can be investing basics, or can be quite complicated, like I want to get into technical analysis, and we break it down into 5 sessions. Each session is 2 minutes long, and you can listen to it on the go via audio, or you can read it. And we sort of keep adding to the library every week. And then the third piece is taking action. And so we basically decided we never want to tell people which way to go. We want to remain independent, but we have this community, and there's a lot of collective intelligence that we found that can be unlocked from this community. And so we started to do 2 things. One is we started to ask people, can you tell us which financial products do you use already? Why did you pick them? What do you like about them? What do you not like about them? And we basically are doing what, you know, a Yelp or TripAdvisor has done for the travel and the restaurant space, but for financial products, and they're sort of crowdsourcing feedback onto financial products. And the second piece that we're working on is sort of in a closed beta right now, but is can we take the offline events with our community and bring them online? Because what we found is where the real magic happens is when people start to sort of relate to each other, and they said, oh, I just also bought my first stock, or I just bought my first house, or remortgaged my house, or whatever. And can we create that online? And so that's something that we're doing in closed beta. And again, that came through experimentation and through being really close to the community. It was never done by design. And so obviously then the final step is that we would hope to empower people to take action and make a decision, and not just have know-how for the sake of know-how. So that hopefully gives you an overview. You can check out our app through this cool QR code. And we are obviously hiring, like I said. We've hired people from here before. But that hopefully gives you a brief overview over community and experimentation. Like I said, tried to keep it fairly high level, and now super happy to delve into any nitty-gritty details that you might be interested in, if anything at all.
Hello. Hi. Does this work? It was really interesting. I'm really curious about your app. When did you decide to move from a newsletter to a custom-built application?
So like I said, we built a bunch of prototypes. We built a web app. We built another app. I think this is the 3rd app that we've built. And I think for us, it was always like it just gives you a lot more opportunity in terms of feature set than a newsletter or than a website. And it felt like the natural thing to do in this year, basically, where it's second nature for people to use apps, and it almost feels antiquated if you don't have an app. So yeah, that wasn't a huge discussion point to be honest.
Hi, thanks. So you're not having any paid marketing on the site? I'm just interested to know what the business model is, how you pay people, basically, how you generate money to pay them.
Yeah, so one is, like I said, subscription. So the end consumer pays us and they get access to the full library. And then the other way is that we have some sponsored content as well. The way that we do sponsored content is both in the newsletter and in the app. And we try to partner basically with institutions where we think they have domain expertise that we can tap into. So for example, we worked with the Bank of England on a pack around central banking. We've worked with Investec on a pack around risk assessment, stuff where they know something that we don't necessarily know because they're obviously the domain experts. And then we Finimize it. So then we put it into the language and into the format, etc., that we use, and present that to our audience, and the respective partner pays to have their brand on it, basically.
One here.
You've just answered my question. How much money have you made your users?
How much money have we made our users?
For how much money have your users made since using you, I think is the guts of that.
I don't know. We don't track that. This is a short answer.
Psst, loads. It's one over there, I think.
Hi. As far as I'm aware, I'm no expert, but there's a certain amount of regulation around financial advice and providers such as yourselves that would point people to products. Have you encountered any regulatory barriers or hurdles that you've had to overcome as you've scaled?
So what we do is we like I said, we don't provide any advice, and we like I said, want to sort of help people make more informed decisions. We went through the FCA advice unit. And we've worked closely with them. We haven't really experienced any hurdles or issues per se. I think for us, the business model has always been we don't want to take a view, and we don't want to push you into our own products or anything like that. Then it kind of defeats the purpose. And so as a result, it hasn't really been falling into that space.
Hello. Thank you for the talk. It sounds as if you started off trying to build a financial awareness product, and along the route you learned how to build communities. If you had to choose one of those two, do you think what you're about is building a financial awareness product, or is it really how to build communities?
Interesting question. I mean, I would say, like I said earlier, we haven't really seen, or I'm not aware of any kind of finance-related product that has created sort of a global community that self-organizes without us telling them what to do. So I think that is something that we've built as an asset that I haven't really seen anywhere else. And so I would say that's probably, from our point of view, something that's more valuable than building just a financial awareness product. And I think that's really what distinguishes us from any of the other financial awareness or financial well-being products out there. And so I guess if I had to pick one, then I think the community has been the bigger sort of driver of what we do, Mm-hmm.
Can I just jump on the back of that? Have you seen, like in the competitive landscape, have you seen legacy financial media institutions starting to get in touch or try and take a leaf out of your book or co-organize activities together, anything along those lines?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much all of the above. We've had people wanting to do events. We've had people wanting to acquire us. We've had people wanting to partner with us on other stuff. We think that it's important for us to maintain sort of the coherent experience for the end users. don't really want to dilute that, and so we haven't really done a lot in that space. But we've done sort of the occasional partnership. We've worked with Quartz, we've worked with Investopedia, we've worked with some other sort of publications, but that was more on a sort of one-off kind of basis.
I think this is the last question, I'm afraid.
Cool. I saw that you can listen to some of the content. Has audio been popular with some of your users?
Yeah, so actually that's one of the things that we think is a really, really interesting opportunity for us or for anybody in the space. So we have audio. We really just launched it in the app. It's very early days. It's basically just somebody reading the text so that you can listen to it on the go. And now what we're exploring is ways to make, like we're thinking like, okay, so we've written the text, now what can be the audio? What if we flip that around? We've written the audio text, now what's the sort of pure text? And I think there's a lot of opportunity there with this resurgence of audio and podcasting and all of that. And then I think it remains to be seen what happens, but I also think, for example, the AirPods platform, if that turns out to be done well, that could provide the next platform for a content play to really sit at the forefront and ride that wave. Again, let's see what they come up with. But I think that's a huge area that we want to invest in and further grow.